Hey y'all, today we're making just add water Alfredo sauce mix. Okay, so you're gonna need sort of a medium-sized bowl, and then we're gonna add everything to this. Now, you can add everything directly to a jar, and I am gonna use a quart jar for this, but I find that I cannot get it to mix as well if I just put it in the jar and shake it, so I always put it in a bowl and whisk it together, but you can do it whichever way works for you. So I'm adding to my bowl 1/2 of a cup of heavy cream powder, heavy whipping cream powder. Then we're going to add in 1/2 a cup of powdered milk. You can use the whole milk if you want to, but I find that the low fat works or the non-fat works just as well. So do it whichever way you want with whatever you have. 1/2 of a cup. Then we're going to add in some Parmesan cheese powder. Now I have the shelf-stable kind of Parmesan cheese powder. If you have the kind that needs to be refrigerated, then you might want to refrigerate this mix when you make it. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So add 1 cup of your Parmesan cheese powder. Then we are going to add 1/2 of a cup of cornstarch. I know some of y'all hate when I use cornstarch. You can use arrowroot powder if you prefer that. I've also seen people use flour. I haven't done flour. I just like the way that the cornstarch, the thickness I get with the cornstarch, but you can just try to add 1/2 a cup of flour to this also if you don't want to use the cornstarch. So now we have to add some seasonings. So I'm going to add some chicken bouillon powder. You're going to need 2 tablespoons of this. You can use the homemade kind that we made together, but I'm out of it. So I'm using the rest of some of the store-bought stuff that I had. Then I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons of, butter powder. If you don't have butter powder, you can just add the butter when you cook this if you want to do it that way. So then I'm going to add in some garlic powder and onion powder. I had sort of a brain fart, for lack of a better way to put that right now, when I was doing this, and I added 1 teaspoon, as you can see, but I'm going to go back and add a second because you actually need 2 teaspoons of garlic powder and 2 teaspoons of onion powder. The recipe will be in the description box for y'all as usual. And some people are having trouble printing them, and I looked that up, and it's apparently a Google issue, so it may make you download the file before you can print it, so just know that. So I added in a teaspoon of parsley, and then I added a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. But once I mixed this up and tasted it, I felt like it needed a little bit more, and I didn't add any salt at first either because a lot of times between the bouillon powder and the Parmesan, it is, salty enough. But for my personal taste, I felt like it needed some salt. So for me, I did end up adding a teaspoon of black pepper and a teaspoon of salt. If you're watching your salt, you definitely don't have to add that. And you can mix it without it and just add it after you cook it if you, would rather do it that way to control the amount that you're putting in there. So the way that I cook this, I use, which I'm going to cook it in just a second, but I use 1/2 of a cup of the powder to 1/2 of a pound of pasta. So you can definitely adjust that, but that's the measurements in the recipe that I'm going to give you. So using that ratio, 1/2 a pound of pasta and 1/2 of a cup of the mix, you can get 5 batches out of this jar because this makes about 2.5 cups of the mix. If you have a larger family, you can absolutely double, triple, quadruple the recipe, whatever you need to do, and just adjust the amounts accordingly. So like I said, I put this in a quart jar, and then this is going to be good on your shelf for as long as your powders are good. So make sure to check all the dates on like your milk powder, your butter powder, the heavy cream, the cheese, stuff like that, and then that will determine how long this is going to be good for you. So when you're ready to cook this, like I said, I'm using 1/2 of a pound of fettuccine. This is just 1/2 of a box for anybody, if you're not sure about the whole pound and everything. It's 1/2 a box. So I forgot to turn the camera on, but I added in here a half of a cup of the mix and 2 cups of water. If you want it extra rich, you can do a cup and a half of water and half of a cup of milk if you prefer to do it that way. But I find the taste is very good with just water. That's why I called this a just add water recipe, but you can adjust that if you want to, So you're just going to heat this on a medium heat until it thickens up. Now, for me personally, this is the way I also do my spaghetti. Which I've never cooked my spaghetti on the channel. I feel it's so easy, but maybe I'll do that one day. But I like to let mine heat and thicken slightly. And then once my pasta is done, I drain it. And then I add my somewhat still liquidy, as you can see, my Alfredo sauce to my pasta. And then I put it back on the stove and I just let mine heat. For me, I just find that if I do it this way, I feel like it sticks to the pasta better, the sauce does, and maybe I'm imagining that in my head. Who knows? But again, do it however you want. If you don't want to flip-flop back and forth between the pans, you absolutely can just heat it until it's thick in your little saucepan and then just add it to your noodles, or just add your noodles to your plate and pour your sauce over your noodles on your plate, however you want to do it. I'm just trying to give you options because sometimes people say, well, why did you do it that way? For me, it's personal preference. That's all it is. So this is what it looks like when it's all done. So the sauce is nice and thick. It's sticking really good to my pasta. And I wasn't planning on cooking this the day that I did, so I didn't have any grilled chicken, but I had a couple of chicken strips in the freezer. So I just threw those in the air fryer and cooked them, and then I just kind of diced them up, and that's what I'm going to put on top of this for this particular dish. Now, I have been trying to be better and not eating a lot of pasta, so I was fixing this for my son, but I was like, let me fix it so I can put it in the video so I can show everybody. So you can just dump your chicken into your pot with your pasta, obviously, but because this had like the coating on the outside, I didn't want to put it in the full pot. So we just threw the chicken over the top of the pasta and then just let people individually mix it in. But that's how I did it. Do it however you need to do it in a pinch or whatever works for you. But that is our instant Alfredo sauce mix. Just add water. Some of y'all had asked for this one, so I wanted to make sure I got it out there. All right, that is all I have for y'all today, and I will catch y'all on the next one. Bye, y'all.